Hello, friends. It's time for this week's episode of PD on Pop Culture. And this week I'm going to talk to you. First off, I want to say this is kind of hard sometimes because there's always this sense like, well, I've got to see something new. I've got to watch something new. I've got to have something to share with you this upcoming week. And some weeks that's difficult. This week it was not difficult. I came across a show that actually Amazon Prime suggested to me. I guess knowing that I've watched movies that are, superhero type of films and things like that. So it was, I guess, a natural suggestion for them. The show is called Invincible, and it is an animated show in the style of cartoons that we're familiar with, not like Japanese anime or anything like that. But anyway. The thing that really intrigued me initially about this show is that it is based on a comic book written by a gentleman named Robert Kirkman. Now, if you're at all familiar with comic books or with popular culture, you will recognize that name. Robert Kirkman is also the author the author of a comic book that was turned into a very popular television series on AMC called The Walking Dead. You've heard me, if you've been in the church any number of years, you've probably heard me talk a little bit about The Walking Dead, and that the fact that it is, The Walking Dead is a survival story, right? But the zombies aren't really the story. The story is the people. The story is how the people really become the Walking Dead, how the Walking Dead, and how they're desensitized to their own humanity by the disaster around them. And the disaster could have been anything. It just happens to be zombies. Invincible is very similar in the sense that it is a superhero story, but it's really a murder mystery. And it's wrapped in a superhero guise. And it also raises some very interesting questions. Let me give you the basics of the story because I have it pulled up here on Netflix. Invincible is an adult animated superhero series that revolves around 17-year-old Mark Grayson, who's just like every other guy his age, except his father is the most powerful superhero on the planet, Omni-Man. But as Mark develops powers of his own, he discovers his father's legacy may not be as heroic as it seems. That's getting kind of the very basics of the story. It really is about this young man and him developing his powers, which are very similar to his father's, and there's a reason for that, which they expose in the story. But it's also draped around this whole murder mystery and this murder that happens at the very beginning, at the end of the first episode, and how they're trying to figure out how what happened. But because it is superheroes, there is also this very real thread and this very real sense, and you may see this in other superhero stories, this very real thread of if you had superpowers, it's sort of what if you had superpowers, could you be your own God? And what would it be like to play God or to be God or be so powerful that you're indistinguishable from God, so to speak? And, I play with that idea, and it really drew me to a passage that, maybe some of you are familiar with. There's a whole chapter, and I printed this out on paper here. There's a whole chapter of Job, chapter 38. 3 pages. It came out to 3 pages. The type is relatively large, but 3 pages of this chapter. And the whole chapter is God questioning Job, because Job had been asking God, why do you do this to me? Why is this? Why am I subject to this? And I'm just lift out a few of these passages for you. God saying to Job, were you there when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb, when I made clouds its garments and thick darkness its swaddling hand? Have you commanded the morning since your days began and caused the dawn to know its place? It's the whole chapter is like that. The whole chapter is God challenging Job, or are you God? And I think sometimes, particularly when we get any sort of power as human beings, we tend to kind of exercise it maybe a little heavy-handedly at times. And so I think this sort of a story can be a challenge to us to rein ourselves in. We're not God. We don't rule over people. We don't rule over situations, but that we're called to serve others rather than to lord over them. Anyway, it's a great series, very adult. It's a little gory, so take that into consideration. But it's enjoyable. I'm getting a kick out of it. It's still in its first season. It's only 5 episodes in, and they're coming out on a weekly basis. So it's not, they didn't just dump it all out there like Netflix does. So if you have Amazon Prime and you're into that kind of thing, like I said, God shows up in the strangest of places. Don't be surprised when you find that God is peeking out from behind something that you would think is very much not Christian or godlike. Anyway, that's what I have for today. Hope you're all doing well, friends. Take care and God bless. Bye now.